everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool Transfer Talk show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. A lot of rumors slash close to official news circling today in regards to defenders. So that is probably going to be the main theme of our show today. Plus, we'll also discuss certain rumors that have been circulating for the last few days. So let's crack on and discuss the big news that's come out of social media today, and that is regarding Jarell Quansah. Now, according to rumors or according to certain sources, a deal has been agreed for the English centre back. The fee is rumored to be around £34 million, which is 40 million in euros. So, my thoughts on the actual deal in terms of the money coming in, I think it's not a bad deal. I did say this earlier on in one of my transfer talk shows where I think the club would want to try and get the premium price, which would have been around 50 million, but they're happily settled for around the 40 odd million mark. But of course, they've gone a bit lower in terms of 34, 40 million in terms of in euros. I think it's a decent deal, to be brutally honest with you. It's been quite obvious that Quansah isn't favoured by the manager. So if that is the circumstance, then there's no point of holding onto a player, despite what you believe. If he is a player that you consider to have potential or could one day be a top player, if the manager doesn't have faith in him in the short term, there's no point of keeping him, thinking long term in that regard. So I think it's a smart bit of business where we've sold a player who still has valuation right now because he has shown a good account of himself in the last couple of years. Under Jurgen Klopp, he broke into the team, and some of us were calling him VVQ and all that sort of stuff. So he definitely made a statement in his opening season, and then the second half, or should I say, second season, under a new coach in Arne Slot. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan. Um, Looking back at, in pre-season, he was playing a lot of the games that started the first game of the season against Ipswich Town, but due to losing out on a lot of aerial challenges, Arsenal was not pleased with him, and I think the writing was on the wall from there onwards, where he wasn't a player that was fully equipped to be a centre back in Arne Slot's team, and he did play a decent amount of games during the season, but whenever he was called upon, he was prone to making a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes, whether it's fouling a player, that leads to a goal, or giving penalties away, or scoring a couple of own goals. Unfortunately, whenever he was involved, he was the denominator in terms of at fault for the goal being conceded. So when you actually watch the game, he actually did a decent job, but it does come into what is the end product in terms of the actual game. If we've considered two goals and he was at fault, then you have to earmark him as the problem there. So I'm not saying there isn't a talented player there, because he is a talented player. He's a player that's pretty much around the England setup. He has been selected on a few occasions, so definitely has a bright future ahead of him. I think he goes into a club of by Leverkusen's stature, where he'll be given a lot of game time. He'll be playing for a very established club in European terms. He'll be replacing Jonathan Tah, who was a mainstay in that team. So for himself, it's a good move because he gets to play first team football. He goes over to a different league, so he can establish himself um, in that kind of manner. So a Premier League move would have been fine as well, but I think with recent dialogues with Leverkusen with regards to signing Wirtz, this would have been an ongoing discussion. In fact, they actually wanted Quansah as part of the Wirtz deal, but we pretty much made it clear that we wanted it as separate deals, nothing to co-align with each other, because we wanted to wrap up the Wirtz deal as soon as possible. So for me, I think it's a good deal. I think for me, it was either a loan move and then hoping he'd come back a better player, or to sell him. If Arsenal doesn't favour him at all, there's no point of keeping hold of the player. So remains to be seen if there's a buyback clause in there, because that could be something that's inserted before he is sold. But yeah, I think it's a smart bit of business from the club. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Are we doing the right thing to sell Quansah, or should we have kept him for one more season and then see, how his career unfolds? But feel free to let me know in the chat. Next player is Marc Guehi. So this is a player that's been earmarked as a replacement for Quansah. The rumored fee is around £40 million due to Guehi only having 1 year remaining in his contract. I think Palace will try and demand a bit more, probably demand around 50 million. So we might meet them halfway and offer 45 million. Now the big question is he the right quality to replace Quansah? For me, 100%. I've said it previously in my other shows. Gay is a solid defender, but I don't think he's a top or elite defender where he excels above many defenders in the league. I feel like he's one of those solid options that you have that can come in and do a great job for the team, but I don't put him in that elite category. Not now, anyway, to be honest with you. So he would be coming into the club as third choice centre back, and I think he is adequate quality for that role. Providing cover and quality and depth for your Virgil van Dijks and your Kanate. So I feel like that is the right type of player to have in your squad. Plus, we have to consider, outside issues as well in terms of meeting the homegrown quota. That's something that he ticks for us as well. And you've got a player who's only 24 years of age, but he's been quite established over the years, especially since he joined Crystal Palace from Chelsea. He's gone on to captain Crystal Palace. He's made appearances for England on a daily basis. And I think for him, he's probably actually one of the first names on the team sheet when it comes to the defenders. So there's a player that is for me a solid defensive option. I even heard some fans suggesting last year that he's a better player than Konate. For me, that's a little bit wild. It goes to show, what kind of player we have here, where he could come in and be a solid option for us. So I wouldn't be too mad about Gay coming in as a replacement for Kwanzaa, but we have to ask the question in a different way as well. What if he's being signed to replace Konate? Because we all know Konate's situation. The contract hasn't been signed. And if you hear the rumors right now, Real Madrid are doing the groundwork to try and get him on a free transfer, just like they did with Trent Alexander-Arnold. So, that's a separate issue there. If that happens, it is what it is. It's not nothing that we can, say in a concrete manner that will happen. But what we can say is for the next 2-3 months, we expect Kanate to sign a contract. If not, I feel like this is the perfect time to cash in on him. He's one of my favorite defenders, but if the player's not willing to commit to a long-term future, there is no point of us keeping hold of him. I'd rather sell him now than have him for 1 year and then lose him on a free transfer, just like we did with Trent. That for me is not an option, to be honest with you. Um, but thoughts on Guehi being a Kanate replacement instead of a direct replacement for Kwanzaa. Is it good enough for me to replace Kanate? No, not quite. I don't think, because if you're replacing Kanate, you're basically the defender alongside Virgil van Dijk, and I don't think Gay's at that level to be playing week in week out for Liverpool. I expect us to have another defender ahead of him, and I think third choice, fits Gay's position in the squad very well because there will be games where you need to rotate your defenders, and if one of the defenders picks up an injury, he's a perfect player to come in and solidify that defensive back line. So for me, he's a good option to have off the bench rather than being the go-to guy to form a partnership with Van Dijk, in my opinion. So that would be my concern about signing Gay, where if we sign him, it's good, but is he being replaced? Is he being brought in to replace Kwanzaa? Or is it being brought in to replace Konate? Only time will tell in terms of what happens. But in terms of Guehi right now, the current rumor is that Liverpool are ready to begin talks with Crystal Palace about signing the defender. If we do get this over the line, I will be pleased. I think it's a good, smart signing. Ticks the homegrown quota that will, help us in the long term as well. So for me, it would be a smart signing. And look, if he is replacing Quansah, for me, that's an automatic upgrade. You've got a far superior defender who's more experienced. And for me, that is also very adaptable in the back line. So I always thought Guehi was left-footed. He's actually right-footed, but because he's played on the left side for Crystal Palace's defense for so long, he's very good on his left foot as well. So that shows that he's versatile, where he can play as a left side centre back or as a right-sided men back, and look, pretty much at home in both positions, and can also play in a back three, can also play in a back four. So gives us that that flexibility to change systems, and he fits in both models there. So for me, it would be a smart signing. I think the feed that I would like us to get him for would be around 40 million. I think that's a safe mark. If it's 45, it's not a crazy deal. It's still a good deal, in my opinion. So I think with this rumor, watch this space. We'll probably hear some more official news, or we'll hear some stronger sort of news coming from reliable journalists in the coming days. I do feel like there might be some truth to the speculation that we are being linked with a move for Marc Guehi. Just going to go through some of the comments before we move on to the next rumor. Omar Hassan, big up Omar, he says Liverpool been linked with Leslie Ugochukwu. I'm not who's that? Here you go. Who does he play for? Uh, I'm not too familiar with that player, to be honest with you. Feel free to let me know who he plays for. I know obviously there's Ugochukwu, but he's the midfielder for Chelsea. So I don't know in terms of if that is the player referring to. I haven't seen that rumor, so let's see um what that says. Double D, big up Double D says sadly I think he may be to replace Ibu. Um, I hope not, because that's not the adequate replacement for Ibu, in my opinion. If we're replacing Ibu, it needs to be someone that will be Van Dijk's long-term replacement, as in the person that leads that back line going forward. So that's going to be a concern, because Van Dijk's not going to be here, anytime. You know, 2 years is the contract that he's got right now. After that, he could probably still play for years to come, but you still have to think the long term in terms of who's going to be his successor. And I feel like with Konate, he's a player that, he's a solid defender, but he's not a leader at the back. I know he does have leadership qualities in terms of, how he communicates on the pitch and how he is in terms of his personality and all that sort of stuff. But he doesn't have that authority in the back line like Van Dijk does, where he leads by example. He's dominant in every aspect of the game. So that's something that um, we have to really be sort of smart. Holston, sorry, was the guy that we were thinking to replace, or should I say, be long-term successor to Van Dijk. Of course, he's moved over to Real Madrid, so we need to find that profile again, um, because Holston is someone that I feel like is on the verge of being that top defender in years to come. So that's the type of profile we're looking for. So Gay for me, um, to replace Ubu, it would be underwhelming. But if you spin it and say he's replacing Quansah, I'm a bit more on board with that category rather than him replacing Ibu. But only time will tell. I think once the window's closed, because we have been linked with other defenders that could come in um, as a centre back option or as a hybrid option as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, it is what it is. So let's move on to the next rumor, and that is Ousmane Diomande. Now, he's a player that I've spoken about quite a few times in recent shows. A player that I think would be a fantastic addition to the Liverpool team. But the current rumor is that it looks like he could be joining Crystal Palace in a deal that would possibly mean that he's replacing Gay. So they've already, found his successor. Big question is who's getting the best deal? If we do end up signing Guehi, are we getting the best deal, or are Crystal Palace getting a better deal in regards to Diomande? It's an interesting one. I really like Diomande. I feel like he could have come in and really sort of solidified our backline even further. Is he good enough to be a Konate replacement? Yes and no. I think ability wise, I think he does have it to replace Konate. but he would still be a gamble. For me, if you're replacing Konate, I want us to sign an established centre back. Same situation with our strikers. I don't want us to sign a project player. I want us to sign the real deal if you're going to replace Konate as well. So um, I think it's a good move for Crystal Palace to get a player of Diomande's quality. Of course, they'll be playing. I don't know if it's official, but they should be playing Europa League football next season. I know they've had issues in terms of registering the team due to the conflict interest of the owner as he's owning he owns Leon as well. So hopefully that gets resolved because I think it'll be nice to see Crystal Palace playing European football. But I think it's a good signing for Diomande. I think in terms of Gay for us, it makes a bit more sense because uh, he ticks a lot of the boxes that we probably need right now in terms of having a more experienced defender in our squad. You know, with Quansah, I feel like there's a player that had talent, but he wasn't, reliable as an option. Of course, we've got Joe Gomez, but he's not always available, so that's a big concern going into next season. So with Gay, you've got someone that's established, that's someone that's ready to come into the fold whenever called upon. So I feel like it would be a smart sort of signing for us to get Gay instead of Diomande. But in terms of ability wise, I think Diomande would probably be better than Gay, if I'm being brutally honest. So, you have to put context into it. It's not just about who's the better player. I feel like Gay will end up being a better fit for us in terms of what we need and, in terms of the homegrown quota, all that sort of stuff. But look, Diomande has a great season at Crystal Palace, and we were to try to sign a replacement for Konate next year if he decides to move to Real Madrid, for example. I'm not trying to put that energy out there, but if that was to happen, then he could be regarded as his replacement as well. So let's see what happens. But I think for Palace, they're signing a very good defender, a very good addition to their squad. Now, if Marc Guehi doesn't, particularly fancy or he's not your cup of tea in terms of, the centre back that you want Liverpool to sign, what about this guy, Nathan Collins? So he's recently been linked with a move to Liverpool. He's had a great season for Brentford. Has been very dominant for the Bees. He would be a player that ticks that homegrown quota. So that might be the profile we're looking at. We're probably trying to sign at least one player to tick that box. Could Nathan Collins be that person? I think he's a good defender. I don't know if he's Liverpool quality, to be honest with you. If he was to come, he'd be third or fourth choice. That's the kind of level I'd expect him to be. I would say Gay is still the better option if I was to compare the two. But I know a lot of fans surprisingly aren't on board with the Gay rumor right now. They're saying he's quite mid. He's not as great as people assume. Questioning his dominance as a player because he's only 6 foot, which apparently is a bad thing. But 6 foot is you're still a tall lad. Like you're not short or anything to that nature. Of course, you've got defenders that are taller, but if he's still a good defender, I feel like height really shouldn't be an issue in that regard. So it'll be very interesting in terms of who Liverpool end up signing as a centre back option. Collins could be regarded as someone I can see him moving to like a Tottenham. With obviously Thomas Frank moving over there now, and maybe he gets signed up as a reliable or someone that he can trust to come into a new environment in Tottenham. So I see that move being more of a possibility rather than him joining a team like Liverpool. And speaking of Tottenham, we've got Christian Romero being linked with a move to the club. Now, the 27-year-old, of course, as you can see in the picture, has just been, you know, on a sort of joyful kind of moment for him where he's picked up a trophy for Tottenham, not just himself. The Tottenham fan base are still in jubilation, to be honest with you, about winning the Europa League. Um, would he be a good signing for us? I'm not quite so sure. I know he's Premier League proven, so that's definitely a plus point, and that's probably one that would get ahead over Diomande, for example. Um, It would depend on his position if he's willing to be third choice, because I don't see him replacing Virgil Konate, of course not. But you know, we're already discussing about possible replacement for Konate. I don't think Romero's even in that kind of ilk to replace Konate. So for me, if that signing did have any sort of truth to it, I wouldn't be, disappointed. I'll just be okay, fine. They see something in him. He'll be a solid backup for us. That's how I'd label it, a solid backup. But it would also depend on the fee because Tottenham like to like to rig certain teams as well. And yeah, unfortunately, Liverpool having one of the teams over the years. So if it's a good fee, like I'm just putting a number like a 20 million kind of fee, then that's fine. Anything higher, you're better off looking at a younger profile that can go into his role and be a better fit for the team. So no, it'll depend on the transfer in terms of the amount to bring him to the club. Otherwise, no, I don't think this is a viable option going forward. And on to the next rumor is actually some official news. So I mentioned this last week in our transfer talk show, but it's been official. And if you're watching live right now, you can see that he is holding a shirt, and that is Vistislav Yaros. So Yaros has officially signed for Ajax on a season-long loan. So he'll be rejoined with John Hattinger, who is the new coach of Ajax. For me, it's a good move for the player. He moves over to an established club like Ajax. He'll probably be the number one goalkeeper there, and it's valuable experience for the young goalkeeper. So he's just signed a new contract as well with Liverpool, and then he's gone over there on loan. So that clearly means that we do value the player as a potential option for us in the long term. But also, if he has a great season for Ajax, because he signed that new contract, it adds more sort of stock to his name. So if we were to sell him, or if he had such a great impact that there were other teams interested, they'd have to pay a bit more of a premium price. So it's a win-win situation where we've got a goalkeeper that we believe has quality to return to Liverpool. But at the same time, if he, kind of like the Keller situation, if he's really performed and wants to be a number one elsewhere, we should be able to get a good price for him. So for me, good move for the player. Um, and yeah, I wish him all the best at Ajax for next season. And speaking of Ajax, we are still linked with this young fella, and that is Joe Hatter. Now, he's being linked with a lot of clubs in the Premier League. You've got the likes of Chelsea, Arsenal that have been linked with him. But also with recent rumors regarding Robertson potentially moving over to La Liga, joining Atletico Madrid, it leaves a gap in our squad. So would Hato be the right signing to make in order to replace Robertson? I think he would be a good signing. Uh, it gives us Kirkes and Hato as your two left back options, but also Hato presents another option for us where he can cover centre back as well. So for me, it would be a very smart signing to get Hato. But from what I've heard, I don't think he is looking to move this season. With Heitinger returning to the club, he was his previous coach when he was managing, I think, the youth level at Ajax. I think he's content of staying at the club for one more season and maybe revisit his future again next summer in 2026. So I actually don't think that's a bad decision. I think another season in the Eredivisie will be good for his development. And once he's ready to move on, I think Liverpool will be one of the clubs interested. So I think he is a great option for us. But if the player's not ready to move, that's fair as well. But we'll probably have to move on and maybe consider a different option. And a different option could be Costa Simicas. So the Greek Scouser, as he likes to call himself, has been a sort of the talking point in regards to this rumor circling Robertson to Atletico Madrid because you've got a player in Robertson who I think we all expected him to stay at the club because of his experience, and we were hoping that he'd be kind of like a mentor for Kirkes um, going forward. But as it stands, it looks like Robertson could be heading over to um, Atletico Madrid. So what do Liverpool do? Do Liverpool try to sign a player like Hato, who's a left back that can play centre back? Because it's going to be a bit of a hard sell to try and get a new left back. Everyone knows that we're on the verge of signing Kirkers. So if you're signing a backup, it's a very difficult project to convince someone to be like, come to Liverpool, you're going to be challenging for that left back position where Kirkers will probably be the starter week in, week out. So recently, Kosimicas has made some comments. So he said, and I'll quote him, and he said, "For me, the 27 to 29 games I play every year in all competitions are more than playing 40 for another team in another league. Here I am on the Broadway of football." So that quote or that comment shows me that he is content with his role at the club. He's not phased by being a squad player. He would rather be a squad player at Liverpool than a starter at another club that's not achieving the heights of what Liverpool are currently doing right now. So for me, that pretty much paints the picture there that he's content with being a backup, and I don't think it's a bad option. Having Kirkes and Simicast as your two left backs in the team is actually, really, really good because you've got two players that stylistically aren't that different. Simicast isn't as energetic or as quick as Kirkes, but he's a bit more forward thinking than in comparison to Robertson, for example. Simicast has great ball playing ability, great from set pieces, great from crossing from deeper positions. So it would be a good, solid, experienced option for us to have for Kirkes. With Kirkes, he's quite young, 21, 22 years of age. So I think it's better to have a Simicast around him who can show him the ropes as well. But in terms of the team, if Kirkis isn't hitting the ground running, or we need to rotate, you've got a good player to come in Simicast that will, produce decent performances whenever called upon. So for me, I don't think it's a crazy scenario to keep Simicast. I know some fans are like, no, sell him as well. The Hato one is going to be different because with Hato, I feel like he'll want to come in and have adequate game time. He's 19 years of age, but he's a very experienced 19-year-old. He's been playing first team football for about 2, 3 years now. He's the captain of Ajax. Even at that tender age, he's at that level where he's used to being in the team week in, week out. He's a commanding figure in the team. So even if he came to Liverpool, he wouldn't be a starter straight away, but he would certainly want to be heavily involved in the setup. So let's see in terms of what happens with Hato. But I think the safer option or the smart option would be to keep Simicast as a backup or as an option to compete for that left back spot with Kirkes, and then we try and sign an established centre back um, for the squad. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But the quotes are quite positive because a lot of fans would have expected Simicast to be like, you know what, I'm not staying here for another year to be a squad player. I'm going to move on elsewhere, which could easily have been the case because he had his chance to surpass Robertson this season because Robertson didn't have the best of seasons. And to be fair, there were phases where it looked like it was going to happen. But for Simicast, unfortunately, he picked up injuries at the wrong time and it kind of derailed his momentum to becoming the first choice left back in the team. But I think Arne Slot does like the player. He does favour him. So I think it would be a good one for Simicast to stay on board for at least another season and see how it goes. And then, if Hato stays at Ajax for another year, maybe we sign Hato next summer if Simicast decides to leave. So, I'm probably forecasting the future a bit too much here, but you do have to think in that manner because Hato is definitely a player that we like, and I think he'd be a fantastic addition to our squad. Whether it's now or next year, I hope it happens at some point. Big up Kieran. He says, "Hello guys. I've heard good things about Hato, but not watched much of him. I watched a bit of him. He's a very, very talented player. In the last year or two, he's predominantly played as a left back, but coming through the ranks of Ajax, he actually plays centre back quite a bit. So for me, that shows you that he's a hybrid where he can play both positions, whether it's in a back three, he can play left sided in a back three. If we're playing a back four, he could play left back, or he could be the left side centre back. So for me, it provides a different option for us. We don't really have too many left-footed defenders in our team. So Hato would be a good option. So yeah, let's see what happens with Hato because the rumors they're a bit hot and cold right now. But what I've heard recently is that he wants to stay at Ajax for at least one more season. So if that's the case, we'll probably buy that time and maybe we'll try and recruit him next summer instead. Mazzy, big up Mazzy says, um, what are the chances for us to sign Alexander Isak? Because if we get him, then Premier League and Champions League double is very much on. I'll talk about him very shortly. So yeah, bear with me. We'll speak about him in more detail. And Man's other comment is Ozzy, tell us about Marc Guehi. How good is he and what's his future potential? So I touched on him. Pause. I spoke about him earlier on at the top of the show. So I think he would be a good option for us. I don't regard him as an elite centre back or anything to that nature, but I do think he's a very solid option for Liverpool. He can come into the team and replace Van Dijk if he needs to be rested, or if Konate has picked up an injury or two. I think he's the adequate quality that you need. I think he's the perfect third choice keeper, third choice defender in our squad because sometimes if you sign a third choice centre back who probably thinks that they deserve to be in the team week in week out. It could be a bit of an issue. But I feel like with Gay, I think he'll understand his role and he will get a lot of games because a lot of fans are saying, "Well, look, it's World Cup year. Why would he come and join Liverpool? He's not going to be playing week in week out." But Liverpool play a lot of games. We don't play the same amount of games as Crystal Palace, respectively. We play probably double the amount. So he's going to get a lot of game time. And it allows us to rotate Van Dijk and Konate with Gay because we know we've got an adequate quality of a defender in Gay to come in whenever called upon. So for me, he would be a very solid option. Now, in terms of his future potential, he's 24 years of age, so he has been established for some time now. Since he's joined Palace from Chelsea, I feel like his career's been on the up. He's been very much established. Uh, he's probably one of the first names that England will pick in their defense. So for me, that is an indication that you've got a very good defender there, a future England first team, I guess. And the great thing about Gay is that he's both footed. So I thought he was left footed initially, but he's actually right footed. But he's so good with both feet that he can play left side centre back or right side centre back very easily. And that helps with our team as well because if he's playing alongside Van Dijk will always be left sided. But then if you've got Gay, he can still do an adequate job as a right side centre back. But if he was to partner Konate, then Gay might be playing on that left side more so than not. So for me, I think it would be a smart option for us going forward. The only question mark I have is that is he replacing Quansah or is he replacing Konate? That would be my concern because if he's coming in to replace Konate, I don't think he's the right level, if I'm being brutally honest. But if he's coming in to replace Quansah, that's an upgrade automatically, in my opinion. So only time will tell, but I think Gay would be a good signing. I know a lot of fans aren't on board. I think he would be a solid option for us going forward. I just got another comment here from Uncle Ross TV says, "Yo, big up Uncle Ross. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. And guys, please make sure to subscribe to Uncle Ross's channel. Um, great, yeah, does great content for Liverpool, and yeah, has been doing more regular content in recent weeks. So please make sure you give him a like in terms of his videos, and please subscribe to his channel as well." Just got another comment here from Raju Painting. So he says, "How do you feel about Quansah moving on, and are you happy with getting 40 million?" So in terms of Quansah moving on, I think it's probably the right decision for the player and his future because I think it's quite clear that Arne Slot didn't favour the centre back, and therefore, if you're not in the coach's thinking or you're not, highly regarded by the coach, it's best for you to move on and try and pursue your career elsewhere. And the same with Harvey Elliott as well, who we all know is a very talented player, but he's not favoured by the coach, so you have to kind of, find a better option out there. But I think at this stage of Concert's career, it would be the right move. I did sort of earmark to say that a loan move would be a decent offering as well, where he goes out on loan to a Premier League club plays first team football, and then we can see, when he returns to the club, if he's fully ready to be integrated to our squad. Um, but I don't think Arne Slot favours the defender at all, unfortunately. So I think in terms of the fee, 40 million, which is in euros, by the way, is a good deal. I think we were trying to get 50, but I think we just tried to, put a high price and try and see if we can negotiate close to that range. But it will end up being 34 million pounds. I don't think that's a bad deal for a player that, probably a couple of years ago was playing League One football and has broken into the first team, has done well. So I think it's a good bit of business for the club, um, and for the player. I think he goes over to a new league, so it's a new challenge, which should be exciting for the young player. He gets to play for an established club like Leverkusen, who, of course, won the league not so long ago. He'll be replacing Jonathan Tah, who has been a mainstay in that defense, and he will pretty much, take over his role as well. So I think there's signs of positive in terms of this move for him. Of course, will he adapt to the German lifestyle and the league? That's another debate. But on paper, I think it's a good move for the player, and I think it's a good bit of business for the club as well. And if we're investing that money to sign Gay, I think it's an upgrade for Liverpool. So I think it's positive, going forward. But let's see what happens with the replacement, because I think that's going to be a key deal going forward. This is the player that Mazzy mentioned earlier on, and that is Alexander Isak. Now, for most of us, this seemed like more of a pipeline dream to sign this player. But with recent rumors are suggesting that there is a strong and real possibility that Liverpool could, place a bid and try and acquire the Swedish striker from Newcastle. Now, I don't know what to make of that, because I don't want to get too excited about it as well, because it sounds too good to be true. We're on the verge of signing Verts, which at first, of course, seemed like an impossible task, and we're almost on the finishing line there. But when we do that two times in a row in the same window, I would love to say yes. I'm not too sure. Apparently, what I'm hearing is that Newcastle would be willing to do business, if we were to bid over 120 million pounds. That's the kind of range that they're after. Because if Liverpool bid at 120 million, it'll be very hard for them to refuse. And I think if that was the base price plus add-ons, then that beats the British transfer record broken there. So I'm not too sure. I actually did a poll on my Twitter, which I'm just going to check the result on now. Asking people, what would you do in this scenario? Would you sign Alexander Isak? Do you know what? I might even do it on this show as well. Get everyone's views on this. So the question that I presented was, would you sign Isak for 100 million, or would you rather use that 150 million to sign Ekitike plus a centre midfielder, for example? Because I think we'll sign a centre back, but the centre mid one, I think, is a little bit unclear if we will go ahead with that route or not. So let me add that onto the poll, and then you guys let me know what you think, because I do want to see what some of the fans are thinking. Is he worth 150 million? Because some will say no, he's not. Um, and everyone has their opinion. I think it'll be maybe because of injury records, where he's been, not recently, but he has, picked up injuries here and there. So it could be a big gamble to buy a player of 120 plus million pounds. We don't know the accurate fee right now. Um, and then, what if he comes into the club and then gets injured? So, it is one of those things where we have to be a bit more careful. Or are we at this stage where we just need to go out there and sign that gunman that we're all, really wanting to have in the team, someone that's, um, ready-made, and they can hit the ground running because I think in terms of the Premier League, he's the best striker. Of course, you've got your Haaland there as well, but I think um, he's the best option out there. I think alongside Alvarez, I think he's the best option out there. So yeah, I'm gonna do the podcast. Feel free to let me know what you guys think. Um, but in terms of what do I see happening here? I think we will bid for the striker. I think we will try and acquire his services, whether it happens or not. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure, but it depends how serious Liverpool are. If Liverpool are willing to spend 100+ million again on another player, then yeah, we're cooking. So I really hope we do. That would be the dream scenario. And honestly, having Isak, Wirtz, Salah, Gakpo in your team as well. Do you know what? If we do get Isak, this I don't know if it will be feasible because I think we will need this sale for this player in order to finance this deal. But I'd love to keep Diaz for another season. And like, if you have that as your front five, front six, you know, we can rotate and it's still, adequate quality that will add fair to our opposition. Verts and Isak as your attacking combination is the perfect balance in my opinion. So this is the dream signing, and I've said this for a long time. Isak for me is the dream signing. I would love to say yes, but I'm just being a bit more reserved. Once I hear, bombers from Ornstein and Romano, then I might be a bit more like, all right, we're gonna get him. At this stage, it's very, very early on. Um, I would love to see Isak in a Liverpool shirt. Actually signing for, not just wearing a Liverpool shirt. So yeah, that would be the dream. But let's see what happens there. Mazzy says apparently Isak supports Liverpool and Anfield is his favourite stadium. I think if he pushes forward the move, then it will definitely happen. I think that's a very key detail to your comment there is that if he pushes for the move, because I think that's how we get the deal done. If we were to bid 120 million, for example, Newcastle can reject that straight away. They don't have to accept that bid. It is people will say, "Well, that's a crazy bid to reject because, it would have broken the British record." But they'll probably say, "Look, we value him at 140, 150, up the price." Like that's the expectation we want from him. Um, but if the player, pushes it, he doesn't have to formally do a transfer. He can, speak to the people and say, "Look, I really want this move. Look, I've placed a bid. It's official now." So, I would love for this move to happen. Like, if he really pushes it in that way, he might get the deal there. But if he's like, "Look, I'll leave it between the clubs," then I don't think there's gonna be any urgency from Newcastle to sell the player because they wanna try and keep him on board. They've just qualified for Champions League football, so they need, this type of striker, in their ranks. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they do sell him because that opens a window into who they would sign as his replacement because there are a few strikers out there that are being linked, like your Sesco's, your Ekitike. So in fact, Newcastle actually tried to sign Ekitike um, when they were first owned by the Saudis. That was one of the first players that they were target, and they ended up getting Isak at a later stage. So they've definitely got him very high admiration for Ekitike. So if you were to get Isak, then yeah, Coutinho could be that natural replacement for him. So let's see what happens. We'll hold off until then. I'm sure we'll hear some more rumors, we'll hear some more news about the story because it might just be where we get flat out told that he's not coming. So we kind of just have to accept it and then move on. We're not linked to a lot of strikers, and also I get that energy that Liverpool are the only interested party. Arsenal have been linked with Isak in the past, but with Arsenal, maybe they've gone on to pursue other targets, or they're not actually able to finance this deal. Or just to put it out there as well, maybe as Mazzy mentioned, he supports Liverpool. So I have seen clips of him when he was younger, and he's spoken very fondly about Liverpool. I've also seen Kevin De Bruyne doing that as well. But with Isak, if he does push for that move, it would definitely shook the airwaves, if that move was to happen. So let's see. It'll be very exciting to see Isak in the Liverpool shirt. But until we don't hear any further news, I'm just gonna hold the emotions a little bit. But I'm praying, hoping it does become a reality. Raju Painting said, "Do you think Sabozlai and Burks can play in the same team? Because we need Sabozlai's running power." I think they can play in the same team. I think they can play in sort of different positions as well. So, for example, Wirtz, I think personally will be playing left-sided in terms of attack as well as the number 10 role. I think it will switch based on the opposition, and Szoboszlai can do those 2 roles as well. So if let's say Wirtz is playing on the left, Szoboszlai can be the number 10. Or if Wirtz is the number 10, I think Szoboszlai should do a job on the left-hand side as well. So and with Szoboszlai, he can also play in the double pivot. So I think people are just, you know, pushing him to one side thinking he just has to make room for Burks. They can both play in the same team very, very easily, in my opinion. And with Szoboszlai, I think he played his best football just before he joined Liverpool, and he played on the left side for Red Bull Leipzig. So for me, there's a player there that can play in different roles and can be effective. Um, and yeah, we'll definitely need Szoboszlai's running power, as you mentioned. We'll definitely need his athleticism during the season. So he's definitely got a very big role in the team, very important player in our squad. So I wouldn't dismiss him just because we've, signed another top player. They can all play together. So I think they can. They certainly can. Um, let's move on to the next one. That is actually Ekitike. So Ekitike, of course, being linked with Liverpool, but there's also a lot of rumors circling other clubs. So recently today, apparently Manchester United are in the mix and they want to try and acquire the signing of the French striker. But Liverpool still hold interest in the player. I think Liverpool probably regard him as a backup to Isak if we're not able to get that deal done. Because if you look at the rumors or if you look at how Liverpool operate right now, we have earmarked Isak as the guy that we want to go for, and if that's not possible, maybe Liverpool wait another year, or maybe they go on to another target. I think we need to sign a striker this summer. Whether it's Isak or not, I do feel like we need to sign an accomplished striker this summer. And if it's not an accomplished one, then an Ekitike for me would be a good signing as well. Um, but the big question is this the right approach to have Ekitike as a backup option? I don't think it's too crazy because the Isak deal, we don't know, if there's going to be any leverage. Are we able to acquire that player? And if not, we might just, they might close the door on that. Nope, he's not for sale at all, and we have to look elsewhere. And you've got the likes of your Gyökereses who, he for me have been banging the goals and is a good striker, but there's still question marks about his adaptability to the Premier League. Osimhen, not too sure what's happening with his situation. I think quality-wise, he's a good striker and would definitely fit the bill for Liverpool. But I don't know what's happening. Is he moving to Saudi? Is he going to remain in Napoli? Is he going back to Galatasaray? It's very unclear because of what his situation is. And other than that, there's not too many options out there. So for me, Ekitike would be regarded as the backup option, but he's still raw. I still feel like Ekitike isn't quite there yet. He still needs some refinement in his game. I don't think he's a prolific goal scorer. I feel like that's something that he would need to work on in order to be a real gunman in front of goal. But I do like the player. Stylistically, has similarities to Isak. I'm not saying they're exactly carbon copy or anything like that, but they're both of similar build, very good on their feet, very good at holding the ball, linking up play very well, and they can the channels in a similar form. So there's similarities in both players. That's probably why we have Emma Ekitike as a potential target as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There are other clubs out there that want him. Chelsea, you know, they're willing to splash the cash on him. You've got um, Manchester United who are desperate to add firepower to their team. But will that project, entice Ekitike? I'm not so sure. I'm not saying that 'cause, we're Liverpool fans. Um, it's a hard project to start at this stage, if I'm being honest. So, money will talk in that situation. So, if the bag, is saying something to the player, then he might join. But otherwise, I don't know. I think we still need to try and pursue Isak if there's any chance of him coming over to Liverpool. If not, we have to, see what the options are. And if you take it that guy, I don't think it's a bad sign. I do think he's a good player. It's just that there's no guarantee that he'll be successful. Not that every player is a guarantee, but with Isak's track records in terms of, how he's played in the Premier League, being one of the most lethal strikers in the league, a bit more guarantee that, he'll hit the ground running. So, but let's see. I do expect Ekitike to move at some point this summer. Which club he joins, I'm not entirely sure. So only time will tell in terms of where he ends up moving to in the summer. Just got a couple comments there. From Mazzy says, if we don't get Isak, then is it worth getting Ekitike? It's very raw and how high is the ceiling? I think Ekitike, in terms of all the strikers out there that are regarded as project players or strikers with huge potential, I think he has the highest ceiling, in my opinion. I know a lot of fans like Benjamin Sesko. I think he's quite raw. I don't think his ceiling is high as Ekitike. I think Ekitike has more to his game than Sesko. So if we were to sign that type of striker, you know, who I guess able to put a striker but has the potential to be one of the best for years to come, I think Ekitike is the guy. So that would be my pick. Go to big up. So can you believe that we are for Marc Guehi, we are fine this window? You know, if he's a replacement for Quansah, that is a great, great replacement, honestly. We are on fire. Ping Pong's already come through the door. Kerkez almost there. Bats, might be flying Friday tomorrow. We might get an official announcement. So these players have already come through the ranks, or ranks, I mean, through the door more or less. So, and we haven't stopped there. We're going to try and get more players. Guehi would be another addition to our squad. We've got Mamadashvili coming in as the goalkeeper. I really hope we get centre mid. I think that's an area we should still, you know, add another sort of player there to provide adequate quality or strength in depth next season. And if we can get that done, wow, we're cooking. Of course, Kerkez and Frimpong being our flying fullbacks as well. It's an exciting prospect next season. So we've got a lot of work to do because we've been very much the active team in this window. But there's still a few issues we need to sort out, the future of Diaz, Nunez, these players, where do they stand? And the finances that we get for these players, can we use it to acquire more players as well? So those two will definitely hold the key in terms of who we sign. Because Diaz goes, we might be even looking at signing a left winger. We don't win at this stage. So regardless, very, very exciting time being a Liverpool fan right now. And Liverpool Ghosty says, I don't think we will risk it on Ekitike. Looks like Isak needs a Gavin pace now. It is. So that's why I'm a tiny bit more reserved. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it does sound positive. It sounds like Liverpool are the only club in the running, and that's the only club I think Isak would consider joining. So signs are positive. Let's see what happens in the coming days. If we get any further breaking news regarding Isak, then yeah, we'll be probably doing impromptu shows without a shadow of a doubt. So yeah, please be on the lookout for that. Uh, Man said, I think we need a proven goal scorer because you can't rely on Salah to score the majority of goals every season. 100% Nazi. I think Salah's goal will be a little bit different this season because of Frimpong now. Where Frimpong is going to bomb down that right hand side, and then you've got Salah playing a bit more as an inside forward, in my opinion. Depending on the shape, the shape that I'm envisioning is actually a 4-4-2 diamond. I see Salah playing alongside Isak, James there, but playing alongside the striker. And then you've got Kerkez and Frimpong being that minor fullbacks, providing the width in the team and the creativity as well. So Salah's going to have a bit more of a central role going forward, in my opinion. But you're right, we can't rely on Salah. That's what happened at the second half of the season where the goal dried up because we were heavily reliant on Salah, and Salah will have phases in the season where, he's not as prolific as, we are expected to see because, he's been amazing over the last 8, 9 years on such a different level when it comes to consistency. But the team did let us down at times. Jota wasn't scoring, Nunes wasn't scoring, Gakpo was in and out of the team due to his injury. Diaz went on a patch where he didn't really score many goals, so we were really, struggling to get goals at some point. So for me, I totally agree. We need to have another player in our team that can take that burden off Salah, and then maybe we unlock a different Salah as well, where the pressure isn't for him to get all of the goals, and maybe he plays a bit more freely as well. So look, it's very, very positive in terms of, how the team is setting up slowly. So it looks like, Arsenal is cooking right now in terms of finding a new dimension to this team, a new formula. So yeah, very, very exciting time going forward for Liverpool. Liverpool TV says with Barca signing Nico Williams should rule out a move for Diaz. Is the Nico Williams one official? I did hear some rumblings about it. Um, if that is the case, then yes, you are correct. Barcelona agreed person to Atletico Bilbao winger. So 6-year deal is going. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Liverpool Goals TV. I think um that pretty much, yeah, closes that conversation now in terms of Diaz joining it because that was his dream move to move over there. And they've still got Rafinha, they've still got Lamine Yamal, they've still got, and they've got Ferran Torres, and now they've got Nico Williams. So they've got 4 wingers in their squad. So there's no space for Luis Diaz, and financially they can't afford it anyway because they've already spent everything that they have on Nico Williams. So yeah, that rumor is definitely put to bed. The Saudi links are still there, so that could be, a move that he goes over to pursue. It's interesting, he just got married as well, so one of the rules in Saudi is that you can't, move over there, with a girlfriend. You have to be married, you have to have a wife when you're living in Saudi, so maybe that was the reason why he got married as well. I'm just putting it out there, but, um, look, if we don't get Saudi, just to put it out there, I'm sure we will because there is not just one car. I think there's about 2 or 3 teams that want to sign Luis Diaz from Saudi. And let's say we weren't able to get a deal done, I would be more than happy to have Diaz at the club for another season. Remember, he still has 2 years in his contract, so, selling him next year shouldn't really decline his valuation, in my opinion. And, if he really does well this season, then, it's a different scenario. We probably up the stock a little bit more. So for me, I'd love to keep Diaz for another season. Um, it would be better if the club gave him a new contract, but then I feel like he will feel a bit more valued as well. Even if it's like, because he's currently earning 50K, let's say he gets 100K, I'll still think he'll be pleased about that. Probably wants more, but, even if it's some sort of like improved terms just to show, our appreciation for the player, I think it will mean the world to him. Let's see what happens with Diaz. I would be willing to have him for another season. I think in our team, with sort of, obviously painting the dream scenario here, but, if we had Isak in the team, imagine having Diaz on the left, Salah on the right, Verts, and you've got Szoboszlai in the mix, as cover. You've got Gakpo. You know, this is like a front 5 or front 6 that many teams in the world can't rival. And it would definitely present that fear factor, because I think last year teams figured out how to mark Mohamed Salah out, and once they did that, the other players in our squad didn't really, you know, show their efficiency in front of goal, and that's something that we need to improve on. Like Mazzy mentioned earlier on, we can't rely on Salah to score all of the goals again next year. Um, so yeah, let's see what happens. We're still dreaming of that Isak move. It is gathering pace, so let's see what happens. But until Diaz, yeah, the Barca dream, I think, has probably come to an end. So hopefully his dad stops talking about it as well now. Um, but the Saudi move, can't rule it out. And it's the same for Nunes. We don't know what his future holds as well. Once those sort of deals or their future is, pretty much concluded, then we know where we stand in terms of squad. Because then we might not need to sign additional players if they were to stay. I think Nunes 99% will go. Diaz, I'm probably 80% that he will go. So let's see. Let's see what happens with those two players going forward. Liverpool goal TV with another comment saying, well, we have Ali Berts who will bag goals for fun. He will definitely he will provide a lot of assists for us as well. Uh, just another player like Isak in the squad, guaranteed goals. He was scoring braces and hat tricks like it's nothing. So that's what we want. We want dominance as well. Because last year we won a lot of games, but I feel there were times where we didn't really go that extra mile to thrash teams as well. So hopefully, we can do that next season. Liverpool goes to we will also sign someone to replace Nunes or goals. I hope that guy is that is the replacement. Roger Painting says, "What a time to be a Liverpool supporter. Most top players want to come to Liverpool. Look at Worth. He said he only wants us and said no to him." And that's a good point as well because you must just stand in Wirtz, who is probably the best number 10 in the world right now. If City fans look at his Turkey black, it definitely isn't the case. Um, wouldn't that entice a player like Isak to come on board? Because, Liverpool's a big club anyway, and, as Mazzy mentioned earlier on, he's a Liverpool fan. But to see, the likes of Wirtz coming in Frimpong, like, you can see the vision, you can see that this is an exciting project, and they've just won the league. They're acting like they just missed out on the league title. And they're trying to revamp the whole squad to go back again. We've won the league, but we're trying to show our dominance, and which is, it hasn't been done under FSG. So it's very, very positive in terms of how we're moving right now. We're actually moving like a big club. We haven't been acting like this for a long time, so it's quite nice. It's quite refreshing to see. And I think if we just get Isak on board as well, Wirtz is gonna add a different dimension to our team in terms of creativity, because whoever plays against us, 9 out of 10, they're gonna apply the low block. So having a player like Wirtz who's so smart and so intricate to how he played and how he flips those through balls, you know, if we had a real gunman like Isak in the team, then, we're cooking. So yeah, Liverpool definitely doesn't seem like a stepping stone type of club. We are a final destination for a lot of players now, and signing a player of Wirtz's ilk it just cements that even further, and it's a statement signing. So that for us is like, you know what? If we're trying to sign your player, you have to be careful because we're building an exciting project here, and hopefully, that could be what sways Isak to come. 'Cause I'm sure he's probably looking at the club thinking, "Wow, these guys do business. Liverpool aren't renowned to spend a lot of money, but they're spending it." So and they want to sign as if Isak told me that the people think they want to sign me for 120 million, so they must really, really want me to complete this puzzle that they're trying to build. It's exciting. So yeah, hopefully we get something regarding Isak 'cause that would be a game changer. I think Verts is a game changer anyway, but times that by 2, it's getting let's be honest. Um, Liverpool got we could be on the verge of dominating English football. I'm praying, and I hope we do. We are looking like that is going to be the case. Because even with Man City signing Cherki and Reinders, these are 2 good players. There's a lot of areas in that team that doesn't function the same way. So they'll need to strengthen in certain areas a little bit more. Um, and they'll be integrating a lot of young players, so they're not gonna hit the ground running straight away. We've pretty much got a quite accomplished team right now. We've got the core pretty much solidified right now. We're just adding, you know, more layers or upgrading certain areas of the team to strengthen us even further. So yeah, it's exciting, being a Liverpool. Mehdi also Mehdi says Ekitike is Isak from Wish. Yeah, I guess I guess that's a yeah, 'cause they do have similarities, I guess in that way, yeah. I don't wanna say too much that, he is, a Wish version. of Isak because if we end up getting Ekitike, then taking my face, isn't it? But I do like Ekitike, but if I had to choose between the two, Isak all day long. He's the real deal. So hopefully we can get that deal over the line. Liverpool Ghost TV says, if we do sign Ekitike, he won't have issues, I reckon, as he will have creativity of plenty feeding him. I believe we are only flying the big right now. For me, the concern would be his finishing ability because he's still very raw. In my opinion. He's not a prolific striker. He's shown that he's a great finisher, and he's not prolific. So that's my concern. That's why with Isak, he can score any type of goal, and he has everything in his locker to be, one of the best strikers in the world. He probably is in Europe, to be fair. But if he joins a club like Liverpool, where he's training for Premier titles and Champions League titles, then that's a different discussion altogether. So, if Ekitike is the one that we end up signing, I wouldn't be too disappointed. But I do want it to be where, we do try for Isak to go as far as we can, and if it doesn't happen, it is what it is, and we go over, and there's no shame in that. But I don't want it to be where he didn't even go for Isak and just went for Ekitike. That wouldn't work well with me either. So let's hope. It looks like we are trying to um, sign Isak. So if it's positive and that is a possibility, then let's hope it becomes a reality. Like I said, Ozzy, just imagine Bert, Salah, Isak, and Diaz as our front lineup. That would be absolutely incredible. Would you else again jealous of us online? They are. They are drumming their boots in every shape and form because when rival fans outright say they're worried, yeah, they are worried. But you'll get other fans that will throw little jabs. Oh, you guys all spent for Berts, like, oh, you guys don't spend money. We're different now. We won the Premier League. We've got a different energy about us. So we're acting like a big boy right now. We're acting like the boss in the league right now. So, you can try and, play down the Berts signing because we're spending a lot of money on him. It's 100 million. The same amount that Man City spent on Berts was by far a better player. So it's £100 million. That's not too crazy. Yeah. Declan Rice was bought for the same amount of money. Caicedo was bought for a lot more money than that. So for me, you can't really say that, Liverpool have gone crazy with this money. We haven't. We've had this money stashed for a while because we tried to get Bellingham, tried to get Caicedo, it didn't work out. So I think Liverpool always had that vision of making a marquee signing. I'm so glad it's Spurs, honestly. I don't understand that because we missed out on a Bellingham deal. I think that was the sign I didn't even dream of us getting. I just thought it was just beyond any reach or expectation. But for him to join Liverpool, yeah, it's a beautiful sight. So I'm just waiting for him to hold the Liverpool shirt. Hopefully, we'll get an announcement tomorrow. That's what we're hoping. Florian Friday and all that. But he's coming, which is very, very positive. Barry he said, "This is the most exciting time ever to be a Liverpool supporter. I can't remember anything even close to this. All my 42 years of supporting this legendary club. Love this club so much. Big up yourself, Barry. Really nice comment there. It is very, very exciting in terms of, you know, all the club are moving. As I mentioned earlier on, we're moving like a big club. This is what we wanted under FSG. We've won a Premier League title in the past, but the following summer we didn't do anything. It's the same with the Champions League. We're top of the world. I still didn't really acquire the caliber players that you should do when you're, at top of the game. So, we've won the Premier League with a coach that has come from a foreign league and has won the Premier League in his opening season. That's quite unheard of as well. Of course, I know the likes of Conte and Mourinho have done that, but the way he's done it with the expectations of replacing an icon and a legend like Jurgen Klopp, most of us didn't even predict Liverpool to be in the top four. Forget top six. Like they didn't think we're going to challenge for the top. So for us to go on and actually win the title the way we did it in such a dominant way, it just goes to show, we've got a special coach in Arne Slot, and he's just beginning right now. This is just the start. You know, people are always playing very calm, reserved, measured kind of football. Well, he's signed 2 attack-minded fullbacks, so we're gonna play a different way next season. We're gonna be unpredictable, and that's what I love about our squad as well, because there is no sort of shoo-in formation or system that we're going to play. In previous shows, I presented different formations with the collection of players that we have, and they all fit really well. 4-4-2 diamond, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 3-4-3. Like, we can play any of these formations and still utilize the players that we have, and they don't really have to adjust as such, or certain players, you don't take too much away from the game in those different formations. So, yeah, for me, it is very exciting times to be a Liverpool fan. Honestly, I'm trying to think when was the last time that I felt this excited? Um, the Thiago signing that we made a few years ago really excited me because he's one of my favorite players. Um, and probably Fernando Torres one when we signed him because he was highly regarded at the time. But in terms of as a summer window, this doesn't. There's not many. I know we had that summer where we signed Alisson and Keita and Shaqiri. That was quite, exciting. But this is a different level. Signing foreign vets for our record fee as well. It's a lot of money, and it's like it's a statement. It's a big statement for Liverpool. So I'm very, very, positive about this transfer window. I'm excited because I feel like there's more to come, and I'm not just being here greedy here because I want us to sign so many players. There's something happening here that seems to be very special. Where we're signing the right players for the right position, and it's not just names, because that's what other clubs do. They just sign names. We don't just sign names. We sign the right players that fit the right profile or the way that the coach wants us to play. So this is smart recruitment. This is not just, looking flashy by signing the trendy name right now. We're not hippies in that manner. We're signing players that we feel like will make a difference or upgrade us in certain areas of our squad. So look, very, very exciting time. Looking forward to it. Mehdi says, PSG bought Ekitike for 30 million euros. That's correct. Then sold him to Frankfurt for 15 because he wasn't good enough. Now 1 year later, we're going to buy him back for 80 million. The fee's crazy. So 80 million euros. I read this earlier today. So I think originally they actually wanted 85 million pounds. That would be a hundred odd million. But I think they're willing to do business for 80 million, which is what you quoted. So I think that is roughly around 65 million pounds. Yeah, I get your point because in terms of the thing is with Ekitike, when he moved over to PSG, he was signed as a understudy for Mbappe. So when you're presented that kind of role, you're not going to flourish, let's be honest, because he was very highly regarded at his previous club, didn't really get much game time at PSG, so he was always going to be, unfortunately not given a lot of time to play at the club. So when that happens, your career gets a bit, stagnated and you have to move elsewhere. So that's why they sold him um, to Frankfurt for I don't know if that's accurate. I'm not sure in terms of how much they cost, but went over to Frankfurt, and Frankfurt was a good club for him to join because it's a club that was on the up in Germany, and they needed a striker to lead their line. And he formed a fantastic partnership with Mamouche last season. And even after Mamouche left to join Man City, he pretty much, took that responsibility and, kept going, kept scoring the goals, and was a real talisman for this team. So for me, he's showing that growth now. He joined PSG he was very young, 18, 19 years of age. So he signed at a very, very young age. I thought he wasn't ready for that move to PSG. Whereas now I feel like he's almost ready to join that big club. So if it is Liverpool, I think we probably sign it a year too early. But you know, if that is a player that we regard as the next guy in world football, then it does make sense to do it now because next year his valuation will double, and then you're paying Isak money again. So that's why for me, you know, I'm not too concerned if Ekitike ends up being a striker. I think he would be a good signing for the team. But my dream signing is Isak. I'm sure it is for everyone else as well in the chat because that is the guy that we've seen the last couple of seasons that he's been really prolific. Against us, he's given us a torrid time. He's been banging the goals. So we want that, in our team as well. So let's see what happens with Isak and let's see, what future holds for Ekitike as well. Liverpool got to this is a message to Maybe just because we have an interest in Ekitike does not mean we will buy him. He's probably an option we can't get the likes of Isak or Simon Alvarez, who we've all been linked to. I agree. I do think, we've compiled the list, and I think there is an order in that list where the names you mentioned, they're the ones that are regarded as established there. And then we have another tier that's probably the project strikers. But in terms of that tier, I think Ekitike is the number one in that project um, segment there because I feel like he's the one that has the highest ceiling, has the potential to really do well, um, in his next move, in my opinion. Liverpool Costa said, "Is it called not having all your eggs in one basket?" Yeah, I guess it is. Um, Medicine to Liverpool Costa TV, I don't like this option. I prefer to keep Nunes and wait next year to buy Isak or Alvarez if we cannot buy Isak. I'm not with that. To be fair. I can't have Nunes for another year. I'll be honest with you. I think he's hit his ceiling a long time ago, and there's nothing more to give. And this season showed me that he's just not a slot type of player. He doesn't fit the bill in terms of how he wants to play, and he's not prolific enough. So I would rather. Okay, let's just paint the scenario. So let's say Isak's not available this summer. We still need to sign a striker regardless of the situation because Nunez will be leaving at some point this summer, in my opinion. So let's say we end up signing Ekitike, right? And we still hold an interest in Isak. And then when next summer comes along, Jota could be moved on as well due to injury issues, or he might not be, wanting to stay because he knows his game time is going to be limited next season onwards. Then you sign Isak. So then you have Isak and Ekitike as your two strikers. So that's your solution right there. So sign someone for this season as well, but then also have Isak for next season because we will still hold an interest on Isak or Alvarez in this situation, or we sign Alvarez next year. So you have Ekitike and Alvarez fighting for that number nine. So it can't be ruled out. I do feel like we will sign that accomplished striker at some point. I really want it to be this summer, but it might have to be where we wait another summer. But in the meantime, we still need to address that position. So another solution, if we can't sign a striker or we don't have the belief that Ekitike is ready to lead the line for Liverpool, we keep Diaz for another year. It might not be a popular choice, but keep him and label him as a number 9 in the team. Like he leads the line going forward, and then you end up signing a quality left winger this summer. So that's what I'm saying. Once we know the future of Diaz and Nunes, we're able to paint the picture a bit better. That's probably why we haven't gone too heavy with the Isak deal. Um, I'm gonna speak about Nunes later in the show, but the Nunes deal might have an impact in terms of how fast this Isak rumor escalates in the coming days as well. So talk about that very shortly. Um, Liverpool Goals TV says we can't keep Nunes, bro. It's gonna be a failure. He's joining Napoli. That is the rumor. We'll talk about that very shortly. Uh, Boxing straight talk. So you have never been to Liverpool. I was at the parade, so I have been to Liverpool. But thank you for your comment there. Um, Ekitike scored 15 perfect games in the Bundesliga, almost scored in half season 15 and 17. Yeah, I guess in terms of numbers, 50, but then don't forget the assists as well. So that in terms of the GA. But you have to always look at what the player brings to the table as well. Um, I feel like there's a lot of potential there. I feel like he's got I think he can improve, I think he can evolve and become a top striker like an Isak in the future. It just depends on our situation. Are we wanting to sign a project striker right now, or do we want to sign an accomplished one, a real gunman right now? That's the big question for me right now. Roger Pickering says, "Bro, the good content maybe when Liverpool sign players, you release a video with an insight on the signing." I'll definitely do that. I have tried to do that in the past with I did a Frimpong one, but I probably jumped the gun with Frimpong. But I did a dedicated show as well. But the next striker, Isak, yeah, we're probably gonna get a reaction video of that news breaking, and we'll do a bit more of an insight into the work of the table. So yeah, definitely want to make an offer. Thank you. Appreciate your feedback. Um, and then Local Girls TV says, Franco have nowhere near the quality we have in our team. Ekatike will be around quality player. If he joins us, that's a good point as well. Different environment, different player profile around him. Um, and I think we'll have a different requirement to how we want him to play as well. It won't be the way he plays at Frankfurt because with Frankfurt he played alongside Marmoush, so it's a different way of playing. In the latter stage of the season, he was still playing up top, but then played a lot more on his own in the second half of last season. So, it's going to be interesting in terms of like how he was. But I think he would fit the way we play. If I'm being honest. Okay, let's move on to the next rumor, and let's speak about him. We've already mentioned him already. Is Darwin Núñez now? Lot of rumors circulating. We had talk of Atletico Madrid possibly um, being one of the clubs that's interested in signing Núñez. I think that was maybe lazy journalism because of the Robertson rumor that broke last week. Uh, this week it seems to be strong rumblings surrounding a move to Serie A with Napoli showing heavy interest in signing the player. And according to rumors, Nunes has verbally agreed a deal with the club. And I think they're currently on the verge of agreeing terms as well. Um, but that's but just because the player is agreeing terms with the club doesn't mean the clubs have come to terms with each other. So the fee is an issue from what the sources are saying right now. Apparently, Liverpool want 50 million, uh, which is of course lower than what we initially wanted for Nunes. But I think that's because we have two prices. We have a Saudi price and we have a European price. The European price is 50 and the Saudi price is 70 million. So not add tax onto the Saudi price because they're willing to spend big when it comes to acquiring Nunes or Diaz in that matter. But Napoli are only willing to pay up to 35 million for a striker. So the question is, what should Liverpool do? It depends if there are interest from other clubs. So if there are interest from any of the Saudi teams and they want to spend 70 million, that should be our sole focus right now. If not, and I think it has been suggested that Nunez wants to stay in Europe, then I think we're gonna probably have to bite the bullet and take that kind of offer. It's not a great offer. We spent 65 million on the player plus add-ons, and I don't know how much of those add-ons have been activated. I know there was one where if he met the criteria for number of starts, we had to pay him 5 million euros. I think we were like one player short, so we end up paying uh, that clause there. But it's safe to say that we spent a lot of money on Darwin Núñez and it just hasn't worked out. So therefore, I think it's best for the player and for the club to part ways. And I think Darwin Núñez, joining a team Serie A do really well. I think his skill set would definitely align with the way the league is played there. It's a bit slower in terms of intensity, and I think that would suit his game a bit further. I think he'll do a great job in La Liga. He played at Almeria as well, so he's definitely a player that can play in that league. And I feel like in a different league, I think he does really well. I just don't think for Liverpool in the Premier League, I don't think he's very much suited. So let's see what the future holds. The Napoli one seems to be a strong indication that that is going to be his next destination. 25 minutes seems a bit low, not gonna lie to you guys. I'd want close to 50. So maybe 40, 45, that would seem to be okay. Um, 50, I would be pleased with. I think that would be a decent amount, that we recuperated, but 35 just seems a bit low. But feel free to drop a comment, let me know how much you would accept for Nunes if we got a bid from him. Let's see what happens there. Just gonna go through some of the comments before we move on. We'll start with Mehdi. Mehdi says, normally when you spend 80 million, the striker needs to be ready to perform. I can accept Mkhitaryan for 45, 50. That's a fair point in terms of your valuation there, because Liverpool don't generally spend big. I know the first one is probably a one-off. Van Dijk and Alisson, of course, those were funded by the team itself. But apart from that, we don't generally spend big stuff. Naby Keita was 50 million, but end up being a bit of a waste of money as well. But generally, we don't spend, too big on certain players, and that's what Darwin Núñez was brought in. We thought, or whoever in the hierarchy thought that he was going to be the next guy, and it just hasn't worked out. So maybe it's a bit of PTSD from the Liverpool fans' point of view that, if we spend big, it's got to be that accomplished guy. That's probably why a lot of fans aren't all for it for the Gyökeres moves to Liverpool because he's from the Portuguese league. So maybe we're getting a bit anxious about speaking to a player that's come from the same league as Darwin Núñez. Um, in terms of 45, 50, I think that's probably the right valuation for the striker. But when there's so many interested English clubs, that's when the problem occurs because the German team are gonna be like, "You know what? We're gonna milk this. We're gonna try and get as much as we can." Chelsea, Arsenal, United, they all want to sign Ekitike, so let's try and get the best deal we can. So that's what's happening right now. That's why it's a bit of a circus. Maybe if those other clubs end up signing different players, then the demand for Ekitike wouldn't be as high. Okay, maybe one or two clubs, and then a deal could be compromised where they slash their valuation, which I think is the case now because they wanted more. Now they're willing to accept about 60, 65 million pounds, which is a little bit steep still. If I'm being honest, I think 50 is about the right mark. 60, 65 seems a bit high, but maybe that's the market price. I mean, things are already expensive in the world, so maybe that is the market price for that type of striker who's not the one yet, but is on the verge of being a top striker, let's say. So, we'll see what happens with Ekitike. Liverpool goal team says to Ahmedi, Nunes is our record signing and he failed. He ain't making sense. You ain't making sense, my friend. Um, what record signing before? But Ali Jalal, big up yourself. He says, I'm sick of this Nunes fandom. He's brass and hasn't improved. Origi's better than him. Yeah, that's a shout. A lot of fans have said that to me as well. Um, yeah, let's be respectful in the chat, guys. Nunes just runs around like a dinosaur. Bloody hell. And this is proof that I'm right. We shouldn't have spent 80 million, just like we shouldn't spend 80 million on marketing. I get your point, Mehdi, in terms of the money being spent, but we can't be too cautious now as well. Um, but yeah, but 80 million for equity it does seem high. I'm not gonna lie. So that's why I would rather us try and just increase it a bit a little bit more and go for Isak all the way because you kind of got a striker already made there. The concern would be, his injury record because he does pick up a few injuries here and there. And unfortunately, our backup is always injured. So, um, that's what I'm saying. If we get Isak, I would love for us to have Diaz for another season because he covers that striker role if Isak's not available, or we need to rotate or anything to that nature. So I think that would just make the logical sense to keep Diaz for another season. But that's probably me being a bit wishful because to accommodate that Isak signing, we'll have to make some sales, and maybe that sales comes from the Diaz deal. But having said that, I feel like we will be generating money in other positions, as well. So, one to kind of think about as well going forward. Um, Maybe says, yes, because I don't buy equity for 80 million, but if we can sell Nunes and buy a good player for the right player, of course I'll accept. I just think it depends on the stance of Isak. I think both people will agree that if Isak was attainable, that is a striker uh, that we would all want, isn't it? Or Alvarez. I think Alvarez and Isak are the ones that, yeah, the fans are wishing that we could get. So yeah. But guys, just be a bit more respect. I know you guys are having a discussion on the chat, but just keep it cool and let it not escalate any further than that. So yeah, put yourself for in the chat. Um, Another regular rumor that happens, I feel like it happens all the time now, every week at some point is Anthony Gordon. Now, this rumor doesn't seem to go away, and when you see things like that where you've got Curtis Jones in the mix, that doesn't help people. But the rumor is that we're still considering targeting Gordon again this summer. Uh, my thoughts on that, look, if we're trying to get Isak, that's the only Newcastle player we're getting. We're not getting Isak and Gordon. There's no way they sell both of their players to us. And quite frankly, for me, Isak is the one. I'm not on board with Gordon as well. Uh, if we were to sell Diaz and we've got Gordon, that would be so underwhelming for me. I said this time last year as well. The comparison that I gave from back in the day when we had Alonso and then we were trying to replace with Gareth Barry, they're not the same ilk. So for me, it's the same comparison here. Gordon might be a good player, but I don't think he's level. So for me, this is not the move that we should be going for. I think there's better options for left wing than Gordon in the world right now. I think there's a lot of young talented wingers that could definitely come in and have a great impact on the team. And plus, Gordon is a good player, but you know, they want 80, 90 million from that. That's crazy. So for me, not worth the valuation, despite his friendship with Jones here. For me, it's a no go. Just gonna go through some of the comments here. Exposure TV bill. So this is Trent is banned from Liverpool. Yeah, I'm definitely co-signing that one. Um, and Curtis Jones going to Newcastle. Is that what you're playing for? I still think Jones has a place in the squad. I might be a minority here, but I do like Jones. I think he's a good player. I think he gives us, a good option from midfield. Uh, I do like him in that double pivot role, so I feel like he's a good controller. Holds the ball really well, good at retaining possession, and I think when he's got the whole pitch ahead of him, he's very good at picking up the right passes. So can also be an option for us in that number 10 role going forward. If you want to rotate with Burks or Szoboszlai, because we don't have Harvey Elliott, or I don't expect us to have Harvey Elliott um, next season anyway. So for me, I think Jones will still have an important role in the team, and yeah, I don't think we'll be selling him. To be honest with you. Maybe says Jones can be a good player for Newcastle. He can, but I don't know. I'm not on board with that one. I know fans aren't completely head over heels with regards to Jones, but I do rate the player. I think he's a brilliant player. Whether that Julian does have mate. Let's keep it respectful, guys. Let's move on to the next rumor. Stefan Bajcetic. Now, the current rumor regarding the Spanish midfielder is that he's being linked with a move to Valencia. After a great loan spell at Las Palmas, he definitely, ignited some interest within that league. So the big question is, should we cash in on the player, or should we give him another chance in preseason to impress the coach? I'm not too sure. I I would say in terms of the cash in element, it depends how much money we can get for him, because he's getting a lot of ballers in Spain. They were really impressed with his performance in the second half for Las Palmas, and they started calling him, you know, comparisons to Busquets and all that stuff. So I was like, "Yes, what?" But each to their own, I guess. But um, it would depend on the fee, to be fair. I think in terms of him impressing us for the coach in pre-season, I think he will be given that chance, and then a decision will be made later in the window rather than right now. So I think it's too early to make a decision. I don't think Bash is good enough to compete against some of our first team players. So in terms of the pecking order, it will be Gravenberch, McAllister, Endo, Jones, and then he might come into that mix. But I would want us to sign another midfielder, so that's number 5. So he'll be 6th choice in my books. If he's content with being, uh, 6th choice, then it's fine. He will get some game time. Good. The positive thing about Vash is that he's versatile, so he can play centre back. So if we need someone to cover that role, he can, be that person, uh, play right back. But the issue with Vash is as well, he's been picking up a lot of injuries. He's actually currently injured right now. So that's what's sort of stagnated his development the last year or 2, and it's a very tricky one. I think if we get a reasonable offer for him, I think we should probably cash in. Um, I think he is better suited for La Liga than in comparison to Premier. I don't think he would be a commanding figure in, the Premier League. Um, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Is he a player that you want in the squad next season, or do you think maybe we can cash in on him and maybe get, something from the player and maybe use that to sign the midfielder that I think most of us would like us to add, to the squad? Let's go through some of the comments here before we move on. Before the team says, I like Jones as a squad player, but I'm hearing that Newcastle want him as part of the Isak deal. Okay, that's interesting. I've not heard that today. Would I accept that part of the Isak deal? I wouldn't, you know. I feel like it reduces our strength in the squad, and I'm not here for that. I want us to continue to grow, and I don't want us to have too many gaps, and I don't want us to have more work to do to replace these players as well. So, mm, but having said that, if we were to sign like an Adam Wharton, he would take Jones's position in the team, so he would be 3rd choice, I guess. And then you have Endo alongside him. It could run, but I personally would like to keep Jones, I would say. But I know a lot of fans will have a different opinion on that. Exposure Steve said 45 million with add-ons, uh, taking it to 55 million for Curtis Jones to Newcastle. You let me know who your sources are or where have you read this, 'cause this is crazy. I did not think, this would be a reality. Um, it's interesting. It is interesting, I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't sell him, but for that kind of price, we'd have to replace him, so is 55 million enough to find an adequate replacement for Jones in the midfield? I don't know. I don't think so. I think we need to if it was 70, then we're talking, but I don't know if 55 is enough. Jones wants guaranteed game time for World Cup. To be fair, he is, heavily favoured by Thomas Tuchel, so you can't rule out that point there in his thinking, but I don't feel like Physical Jones is discussed. I don't think, he has that viewpoint where, it's England before Liverpool. I feel like for him, it's Liverpool before England. That's just my point of view. Um, I don't think, in terms of the England team, that Scousers get the respect that they deserve. And obviously, international football doesn't appeal to me. So I'm thinking, as a player, does it appeal to them, or is it just a bonus? I would regard it as a bonus that you're featured in those kind of games. So hopefully, that's not in his forefront in terms of him thinking, look, I need to move on. If it's just for the World Cup, then yeah, I'm not pleased with that kind of mentality, if I'm being honest with you. Um, yeah, guys, let's just keep it respectful in the chat, please. Um, I know we're having a discussion and it's all good to have different opinions, but just be respectful as well at the same time, please. Can I be ready to replace Endo? No, I don't think Bashir is ready to replace Endo. Um, that's why I've got him if we were to sign him before as 6th choice. Endo is for me, he gives you that stability, um, and reliability as well, 'cause Bastian has been injured for quite some time as well, so, he's not a player that we can rely upon. I don't see him making a bench for most games, so that's why it's interesting, if we do have genuine interest from La Liga, from a team like a Valencia or I think Villarreal was a team that was mentioned a few months back as well. Um then I'd move him on, to be honest with you, but let's see. The thing about Bacic is I think he has a lot of room to grow into the I think there is a player there, but I'm not too sure. He doesn't move me, if I'm being honest with you. I feel like he's a good young player, but I feel like he's just suited for La Liga, or a different league. I think the Premier League too physical for him, but that's just my opinion. Um, Liverpool goalkeeper says Bassett is still under 21. Under 21 players are registered separately to our first team squad, and we can register as many under 21 as we want. I believe he's turning 22 soon, isn't he? Let's double check. Oh, you're right. He's 20 right now, so he'll be 10. So yeah, he doesn't need to register, which is fine. I don't think that's an issue. My thing is more from a footballing point of view, where yeah, is he happy to be fifth or sixth choice, depending on if we do acquire a midfielder this summer or not. Uh, that's the question because I don't think he'll get a lot of playing time. And maybe he's at that age now because he's had a couple loans, but maybe he's got that hunger for playing week in, week out. And if there's a team like Valencia, an established team in La Liga, wants to sign him on a permanent basis, it might be something that sways him to move over there. So that's why we have to look at both sides. I feel like for us, I don't mind him being a squad, but if I'm being honest, he's fifth or sixth choice. And nothing higher than that, if I'm being honest with you. So if he's happy to be a squad player, then I have no cons. As long as we can add another midfielder to our squad and have real quality in depth in that midfield, then he can be one of our many options. No problem there at all. Last season we registered 61 under 21 players we can make use of any time during the EPS. And 60 seems a bit crazy. We registered that many young players. Um, if 42 says Slot wants rid of all the Finnish players, I kind of like that ruthlessness. I'm not gonna lie to you. No point is keeping players for the sake of it. Like the Quansah one, I just don't think he feels like he's a player that can excel in his team. So therefore, you got ways to try to get some money in and then try and sign an upgrade. And Guehi for me is an upgrade straight away. So I'm all for it, to be honest with you. Exposure says you heard it here first. I know Curtis Jones is aiding the deal with Newcastle is on sadly. Be yourself. If that is the case, please, come on the show. And look, I will definitely remember your name. And if that happens, I will give you a call for sure. Um, but yeah, we do these transfer talk shows on a weekly basis, so feel free to come on and yeah, if we hear any rumblings or if you hear any further news, feel free to drop a comment and let us know in the chat as well. Moving on, really. So no sort of interest from clubs as of yet, but what we do know, and I think we've probably known for some time, is that Liverpool want 40 million for the player. Is that the right valuation? I think it is. We could probably with milk and get a bit more because there are a lot of players that have been bought for that kind of figure, and I don't think they're in the same league as Elliott. But 40 million, I think, is a respectable fee for the young players there. In terms of the league, if any team that fits his ability, Wolves was one of the teams that were linked with him. I feel like he could do better than Wolves, to be fair. Brentford would have been a good option, but obviously Thomas Frank has moved on, so it depends who they sign because it could be where whoever the new coach is, they might have a different ideology in terms of how they want to play. I think Elliot is a natural number 10. Can play right wing, but I think because he's not very dynamic, he's not very quick in that first step when he's dribbling. I don't think he's fit for that role. But I feel like he can play in the central midfield role or play a bit more advanced just behind the striker. But great sort of passing ability, great in terms of through balls and all that sort of stuff. So for me, um, there's a lot of clubs out there. I feel like they'll definitely help. Crystal Palace is one. I think that could be a team. Because with Glasner, they do tend to play with a back three and then have a number 10 at times. But that is Eze's role. But Eze can play from the left. So having Eze on the left and Elliot in the number 10 could fit. I'd probably have to ask my friend Rich. Shout out to Rich on Eli Football. He'll probably give me a better take. Um, if Elliot's a good fit in their team, maybe we'll go like that at some point. But uh, I think we can definitely get 4 million from him. I think there'll be a lot of clubs that will be interested in signing Harvey Elliott. He's a player with fantastic ability, great potential, and he seems like a really likable person as well. So I think, I wish him the best. It's just a shame that he's having to move on because he's like us. He's a Liverpool fan. He's a boyhood fan, and this was his dream to play for Liverpool. And what we all dreamt when we were little kids. He's living it right now. So whether he stays or not, I think he will end up leaving. He's accomplished one of his dreams, which is good to see. So hopefully, he finds a club that fulfills his ambition, and he can deliver his potential at some point as well. So yeah, all the best going forward. Now, Florian Wirtz is in the actual picture, it's AI generated. But we're getting positive news. So Florian Wirtz flew into the UK. I think he took the first part of his medical, so he's got another one tomorrow, and it should be all systems clear that Florian Wirtz is going to be a Red. So hopefully we'll get some announcements tomorrow. It could be where they wait until the end of the weekend or early next week, but it's safe to say that the news is imminent. So as Liverpool fans, we should be overjoyed. We should be excited um, about Overwatch in Liverpool because it's only a matter of time that we get that official announcement. And speaking of, you know, being excited, uh, Milos Kerkez and his dad certainly didn't hide anything in their recent podcast appearance in Hungary, where they pretty much unofficially confirmed that Kerkez is joining Liverpool. Now, what's my thoughts on that interview? I don't like the way that was done, if I'm being brutally honest, because just to play devil's advocate, let's say, he has a great few years for Liverpool, and then, you know, that team, who's always trying to compare, they make an approach. And let's say there is something that happens with that, and he goes on radio and tells everyone before that deal was official that, "Oh, I'm going over to another club." It's a little bit disrespectful. So in this situation, I do think it's a little bit disrespectful to Bournemouth because Um, it's not official yet. It is probably official. It's probably everything's been agreed, but I don't feel like this is the right sort of platform to do that. I know he's excited, his dad's probably excited as well, but no, I didn't really take it very well. I think, you know, if you're thinking, "Oh, it's a cool thing I did," what goes around comes around. What if he does that to us in the future where he announces another club that he's about to leave Liverpool to join? So yeah, it wasn't very, like pleased about seeing that, but, he's young, like, his dad, his dad should know better to be but in terms of the deal, it should be, officially confirmed at some point next week. Um, the deal is that, um, £40 million, I think. I don't know if there's add-ons involved, but 40 million is the base price, which I think is fine. I know some will say that's a lot for a left back, but I think it's the going rate, to be honest with you. Um, and he's a player that we pretty much regarded as our number one target. So if that's the fee we need to, sign the player, then let's go for it. So I'm excited about this signing. I think, the more I've watched him in last season for Bournemouth, I've been more impressed with him. I originally wanted Hato. He was my first choice, but the more I watch Kaka, I think, you know what? He's got similar traits to what Robertson had when he first joined the club. I think he might just be a great fit for us. So looks like Kerkez is going to be a Red very, very soon, and he'll be joining his compatriot in Dominic Szoboszlai at the club as well. And that's the last rumor. Before we close the show, just gonna go through some of the comments. Um, Liverpool goes, you said you can check out the Premier League website is the Premier League squad rules. We registered 22 first team players and 61 under 21. I know the 22 first team players. I wasn't actually still under 20, 21, but I think that that is a full money, I guess, because if you have one of your young players come through, it has to be registered to an extent, right? So yeah, that does make sense to be fair. Um, Mason, have you talked about Konate or are you going to talk about him? So I mentioned him earlier in the show, but it was in correlation with the Guehi rumor because the question mark I have about the Guehi move is that is he joining is he possibly joining Liverpool to replace Quansah or is he possibly joining Konate? Because I'm sure we've seen the rumors regarding Konate um, to Real Madrid, and it is a bit of a concern because they're using the same methodology of hiring a player by speaking to them behind the scenes, not officially, and letting the player know that, "Look, we want you to join the club, but you're gonna have to run out your last year of your contract in order for us to, sign you on a free transfer." And they probably, promised him all these perks and all that sort of stuff in terms of sign-on fees, and his agent gets, a good chunk of that money as well and all that sort of stuff. So, I don't know what to make of it because that's one side that we're hearing, but there's another side I'm hearing that, there have been continuous talks with Konate and his camp in regards to that new contract, so we might get some news before this window closes. But the thing is, if the club get any inkling that he's not gonna sign a contract, sell him this summer. He's one of my favorite defenders. I really like him as a person. I like his character. I like what he brings to the table in terms of his performances on the pitch. But if you're not committed to the cause and you've got 1 year remaining, I don't want to see us in that same scenario as Trent Alexander-Arnold. The Trent deal, whatever happened with Trent, it's definitely rubbed us the wrong way, hasn't it? Even if you were a very ultra positive fan and you were like, "You know what? We should applaud Trent for his contribution," all that stuff. I feel like, the antics that he's done in recent weeks where he's gone over his press conference speaking fluent Spanish. He's made comments to say about, he's not used to the training, like, it's a lot quicker than what he's used to, and just little things here and there, like, even just his manners, I find him so irritating now. Um, and I don't want to people think, "Oh, he lives rent free in my head." It's not the case, 'cause obviously I'm doing watch-alongs for the Club World Cup, so when I've seen him in action, and he's into it, he just, yeah, I'm not I can see why there's a lot of hatred towards him. I don't hate the guy, I don't know him, but I can see why fans really get rattled when he's on the screen. Um, and I'm watching his performance against who did he play Real Madrid? I forgot now. Al Hilal. So the performance at Al Hilal where he got destroyed by Al Dasari, the Saudi Arabian left winger, for me, I was just like, "Yo, that's their problem, with Williams," because I'm not, an advocate of the England national team, so don't care less what happens there. If he selects them, if he's selected for them or not, that's not my concern. And for Real Madrid, look, I wish him good luck, but for me, it's a thing where, you've carried yourself in such a distasteful way that, let's say this move doesn't happen, like, let's say it doesn't work out. I would not want us to re-sign him. For me, he's burnt the bridge for us Liverpool fans. He's done a lot of damage. I don't care that he was crying on the bus and that was all for show in my eyes. So when it comes to Trent, for me, it's all done now. And people present that question, is he a legend? I'm not ready to answer that question. So we can talk about that in years to come. But um, back to your point in the Konate, Liverpool have a huge decision to make. And only they can make that decision because they'll get that inkling. Is he going to stay? Is he not? I don't wanna hear that, "Oh, he's gonna see how the season goes." For me, that means he's ready to move on. If they get any of that kind of inkling that that's his stance, sell him now. And look, if Real Madrid want him, pay the money now. I know you signed House for 50,000,000, but if you want this guy to come a year early, then you gotta pay us something to us as well. At least match the fee that we paid for him. That's the minimum. 35, 40 million. That's the minimum that I want for Konate. It's not a lot, but because he's on the last year of his contract, I'd take that. As long as we don't make a loss in the scenario, then, we should try and get as much as we can. So, let's see Konate. I really hope and pray that he does sign a contract. I think that he's not going to replace Van Dijk like for like, as in being the guy in our defense, but I feel like if we were to sign a top defender, I think he'll be the one that is the catalyst of forming a great partnership for, that defense and for help Liverpool for the future as well. So I really hope Kante does stay. But if there is any sort of indication that he wants to leave or he's not ready to commit to the club, I think we should sell him. So maybe I'm probably thinking there, but I feel like we've got to be very smart in how we move. Mason, if he doesn't want to extend and we have to sell him this summer or tell him that he'll be on the bench, we'll see that might miss the World Cup. The second one will only work if we were to sign an adequate replacement. And Gay is not that replacement, by the way. I'd wanted to get someone else, um, just to put a name out there, just to kind of paint a picture. If we got Bastoni, for example, and we're like, "Yeah, you're sitting on the bench. You haven't shown anything for us, so you're sitting on the bench." So let's see what happens. I don't think he's that type of character to, make a huge fuss. I think he'll let his agents or his agency do the talking and all that sort of stuff, and he will just wanna concentrate on his football and performing on the pitch. But the club need to be smart in this moment, innit? Because if his people are like, we're not happy with the terms because I don't know if you guys remember, he did a press conference. I think it was I think it might have been the game for PSG. And in the press conference, he was asked about his contract situation. He said that there is a contract on the table, but at the time, the Van Dijk and the Salah deals weren't announced. They weren't made official. So I thought maybe he was waiting on Van Dijk to, sign the deal, and then maybe he'll make a decision based on that. But we've not really heard much of an inkling since then. So it's a concern. It is a concern. If Gay is his replacement, I wouldn't be too enthusiastic about that. I think we should probably go for one level above in terms of that caliber of centre back that comes into the Liverpool squad. But I do agree with you. Um, I think we have to sell if he's not willing to sign a new contract. I don't want that Trent Alexander-Arnold situation to happen again. Um, Especially because he knew he was always going to leave. He probably knew from 2 years ago when he started taking the Spanish lessons on Duolingo and all that sort of stuff. So he knew what he was doing. I saw him doing an interview on CBS, and he mentioned that he's been doing lessons for the last few months, chat rugby. He's been doing it for years. The way he spoke so fluently, he knows he's been doing it for a long time. So yeah, I don't want that Trent situation to ever happen again. So the club will probably have learnt from their mistakes, and that's why they need to get at the end of this situation very, very soon. If Carson doesn't want to sign, have to either sign his replacement 12 months early, and he holds the bench like Mehdi has mentioned in the comment, or we still him on now. So it's one way or the other. So let's see what the club does. Um, and Mehdi's second comment here is that, but the club has to make a choice, pay what he wants or sell him because PSG and Madrid are just waiting January to pay what he wants. Exactly. 'Cause January will be the time where he can sign a new contract agreement with a foreign club, and the interest is from PSG and Real Madrid, as you stated. So that would be a concern going to January that he signs a pre-contract agreement with someone else. I'm hoping, we've got a very complete squad. We're fully focused on winning the league, the Champions League. I don't wanna hear any distractions. I don't wanna hear contract talks. What is this guy gonna stay? Is he not going to stay? If Kante wants to stay, please sign the contract now before the season begins. If not, we have to try and do something now and move you on. I don't wanna see that situation again. So luckily, it didn't impact our season, but it could have done. Let's be honest, it could have done. Um, he's your only big so it says Konate either signs the contract or sits on the bench behind Gay this season. I do think Konate is gone, whatever happens. I hope not. He's only there. I really don't want to see Konate leave. Interesting, well, Gay will be ahead of him and he sits on the bench. that's the case, I don't think Guehi's an upgrade to Kante, so I'd like us to sign another centre back. If that is the start that we have, that you're gonna sit bench now, because it'll be where we Guehi, Konate, and then we'll have a solid centre back alongside Van Dijk, and then you've got 4 good centre backs there. So if he has to be 4th choice, he has to be 4th choice. It is what it is, but I don't know. It would have been nice to treat Konate like that because I think he's been a great servant for us. But if he's not willing to commit, then it's something we have to consider going forward. So let's see. I think we'll probably hear some sort of indication about Konate soon. Um, we've already heard it, you know, Real Madrid doing the work, or the groundwork, I should say, to sign him for next summer. Does he not remember what he had to go through when Trent was playing alongside him? The amount of running and graft that he had to do. Like, he'll have to do that for Real Madrid as well, because if you saw the game against Al Hilal, Trent was playing just like he did for Liverpool. In fact, he looked actually worse, which is crazy as well. Um, Al looked like he was prime Neymar the way he played against him. That's what he made him look like. So yeah, hopefully, we get some clarification in terms of the Konate situation. And yeah, and I don't want us to be, a regular discussion point. Is he gonna stay? Is he not? I don't wanna hear none of that. So hopefully, things will change in the future. And that is the last rumor. That's the last one. I'm just gonna check the poll as well, just so we can confirm um, what the results are. And just to refresh everyone's memory, the poll was in regards to spending a certain amount of money. So what would you do in this situation in terms of £50 million? Would you sign and spend all that money on Isak, or would you sign like a TK and a centre midfielder with that under 150 million? So 47 of you voted. Big up yourself. Thank you so much for getting involved in the poll. Um, 85% have said that they would sign Isak with £150 million, and 15% have said Ekitike plus centre mid for £150 million. So thank you very much for getting involved. My answer, I'd go for the first one, sign Isak all day long. That would be my take there. Um, but that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm gonna give everyone a shout out that's been involved in the live chat. Uh, Shout out to Omar, shout out to Double D, shout out to Kieran, shout out to Mazzy, shout out to Uncle Ross TV, shout out to Raju Pengteng, shout out to Liverpool Ghost TV, shout out to Mehdi, shout out to Barry, shout out to Boxing Straight Talk, shout out to Alfredo, shout out to who else we have? Exposure TV, big up yourself. Um, and shout out to Ijoli. Yeah, big up yourself there, Mehdi. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for tuning in today. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe. I hope to speak with you guys very, very soon.